Hi! If you have a blank wall in your house that you just don't know what to do with, or maybe you're looking to spruce things up, I recommend trying a gallery wall. It's the perfect way to have your house reflect your personality, and it also just gives like a super cozy and homey feel. I recently arranged this gallery wall in my dining room, and it totally transformed the space, and this is now my favorite room to be in. So let's talk about how to set up your own gallery wall, some tips and tricks to make it look as good as possible, and how to make sure that your personality really shines through. So gallery walls, which are originally known as salon walls, have been around for a really long time. The trend started in Paris around 1670 at the Royal Académie of Painting and Sculpture, and it was a way for recent graduates to showcase their work. And in order to fit as many paintings as possible, they filled the space from floor to ceiling, and they put the paintings super close together. These salons eventually spread throughout Paris, and in 1737 they became open to the public for free, which allowed anyone, no matter their social class, to engage with art. I just think it's good to know a little background or history of where you're pulling your inspiration from. So now let's get into the fun part, picking what artwork you want on your wall. And I have a few categories that I think you should consider during this process, which are scale, value, texture, and most importantly, nostalgia. One of the perks of a gallery wall is that it can grow and expand over time. So don't feel rushed into getting all your artwork together at once. You can put it up on the wall and just keep building it out. I also think that you can just kind of feel when one of these walls is genuine versus when it's like a bunch of random stuff that someone bought all at once. So if you're looking for some artwork, I recommend searching at vintage stores and antique stores, because then you can get really unique and a lot of times handmade pieces. And then if you have something more specific in mind, like say you really like cats, so you want some cat artwork, you should check on Etsy and eBay. I also recommend going to your favorite artist or illustrator's website because they probably sell some prints. You're going to get the most out of your gallery wall if you fill it with things that mean something to you. So let's talk a little bit about subject matter. I think this is where it's really important to consider things that have some sort of sentimental value. Like maybe you could include vintage family photos, or I have some pieces on here that my grandma made. They're needlepoint and cross stitch. I also have this banjo that I found in my grandparents' house, which is just really funny because I don't think either of them played the banjo. I don't really know how it got in here. I also just like how it adds a three-dimensional aspect. Don't worry too much about having a theme. In fact, I think you shouldn't try and plan a theme, and that will just come naturally out of what your tastes and interests are. And if you have contrasting tastes, I think that's actually super cool because then your wall will have like a juxtaposition and it'll represent you. For example, I think it's really cool when these types of displays have a combination of contemporary artwork and then like vintage and antique pieces. I think it just gives it like a really modern and fresh look. Basically, don't worry too hard about what matches or goes together, and just think about what you're drawn to. Next, let's talk about scale, because this is pretty important. I think it's good to have a mix of really big pieces and really small pieces, because this will help your eye move around the composition, and it'll also give your eye like some more detailed things to look at and then maybe some space to breathe. Also make sure that you have things of all different dimensions. So maybe like a circle or a square or something really long. They shouldn't all just be the same shape. And if you can add some things that are really irregular silhouettes or something like that, I think that'll really like bring it to life. Like I have these little slab ceramic cutouts that I made. I also have this mirror, which is a really cool shape. Another thing is that your frames don't all have to be the same. I think it's better if they're different. They have like different widths and thicknesses, and if they're made of different materials, which brings me to my next point, texture. Like you can have a gold frame and a wooden frame, some things that are unframed, or maybe they're framed but there's no glass. The needlepoint pieces are like that, and then you can see the texture of the needlepoint. I also have this music poster, which I originally intended to frame. It has like a hole in it at the top, so it wasn't really necessary. And I really like how it gives a matte look against the other objects that I have on the wall. I like having the mirror for its reflective quality. I also think adding something metal would be really cool. Like I've been loving antique weather vanes. They just come in really cool different shapes. I also like baskets or anything woven, or some sort of textile. Even like tied up dried flowers would look really good. Next, let's get into values. Values can kind of make or break your walls. I think that you need a range of really dark and really light. You can do this just by adding black frames. In the case of my wall, I have this baby painting in the middle, which has a lot of contrast in itself. So I think putting that in the middle really helped, but also it's important to make sure that you're spreading those pieces throughout. Once you have all your artwork, you're ready to start hanging. So let's talk about composition and arranging. I would start by laying everything out on the floor so you can see what you have, and then start putting things next to each other that you think you would like. Having it on the floor is just a really easy way to figure out what works together, and nothing is permanent yet, so you can move it around. It's also good for building confidence before you put it on the wall. So I did this when I was creating this display, but I didn't really end up following it exactly. So don't think that the first plan you come up with has to be what you stick to, because things are gonna look a little bit different once you see it up there. Then I would pick your centerpiece, whatever is gonna go in the middle, and I would hang that one first, because I think you should start from the center and then build out. Also consider grouping. I didn't really do this. Everything is pretty evenly spaced, but I think that grouping could have made my wall even better, because you can create like little clusters of images. It just helps your eye know where to look. I think I still would have laid it all out the same way, but just having some pictures that are closer together, I think that would have looked pretty good. Now let's head to Pinterest and get some inspiration. So I made a board of gallery walls. I have like little subsections of texture and space, and then the rest are just ones that I think are cool. So we'll start with texture. This first one, I just like their style. Like, they have a good mix of old and new. I think the tennis racket is a cool idea for texture, and same with the license plate. This one I really liked. On the left, there's like those 3 picture frames, and then next to that are like the 3 little objects, and I liked how they grouped that. It's also good for scale. And then this next one, I really like the clock, especially because the clock is a rectangle, which I feel like is not very common. And then this one has the printer's box, which I think is perfect for displaying trinkets. I have one of those on this wall, and originally I wanted to incorporate it into the whole gallery thing. I couldn't really figure out how to do it, so I think doing it with just a few paintings like this works really well. Oh, this one, I just think they have like great personal style. I like the wallpaper and then their combination of paintings and stuff. And then I also like how they combine like the wall and the stuff on top of the fireplace. It just works really well together. Okay, so then let's go into my little space section. This one I think is so sweet. Another one above the fireplace. It's the perfect spot for a gallery wall. I really like how they have the candle holder. I don't know if they put that there or it's like a part of the home, but it's so pretty. And I like how they centered everything around that. And I also just love their aesthetic. Everything is so cute. And with the striped wall, it looks really good. This one stood out to me because the gallery wall is just like 2 rows and it's on a little sliver of the wall. This is a perfect example of how you can create this look in a small space. This one is so good. I love the wooden background, and I think the way that they grouped everything and arranged it is kind of unexpected because it's not like evenly spaced. I especially like the bottom right corner, that square piece, and then the little rectangle right on top of it. I like how they're almost touching. This is another example of how to do this in a small space, and I really like it next to the bookshelf. Like, this type of aesthetic goes so well with a bunch of books. This one definitely feels more curated, but I really like the way they arranged it around the mirror and how the mirror is like on the ground. It just feels really like immersive. This is another good example of how to do it in a small space, and this one's a little different because it's super horizontal. I like how they do it like across the room, and then working off of like the paneling on the walls is really cool too. Okay, this one has so much good variation and texture, and I love the way that it continues over the doorway. It just feels very balanced. This one I liked as an example of how you can make a gallery wall even if you don't have a lot of pieces, and it's just so simple and sweet. This one looks like it's in an artist studio, and I really like their work. I love the house cutout, the way that they arranged the paintings in a circle. I think that's so unique and just really playful, which goes with the theme. Here's an example of doing it over the doorway. I like how it's up high and the pieces are little. It's just so cute. So those are my sections. Then let's look at other ones that I just like. Oh yeah, I thought this one had really good style. traditional. I just think the bright pop of yellow really makes the wall. So don't be afraid of doing bold colors. This one is cool because you can really tell the person's style. I even like how their pieces aren't all like perfectly straight. Some of them are a little bit crooked, and they have good scale too with some really small artworks. This one is fun. I like how it goes all the way to the ceiling. As you can tell, I love a gallery wall above a desk. This one is a bit more minimal than some of the other ones, but super good taste. The red frame really pops everything. They also have good negative space in all of their pieces. Okay, this one is so amazing and maybe my favorite. There's just so much stuff on here, and I really like how it goes from floor to ceiling, and their artwork choices are just so fun and colorful. This is another example of doing a gallery wall above your desk. And I like how they did it like around the desk, and it even goes to the floor. This one, I like how they have the tapestry at the top. It adds a nice pop of color, and it contrasts really well against the rest of the paintings that they have going on. Another thing that I like about this one is the way that they have that one framed piece that's really big going behind the couch. It just feels like something that you're not supposed to do, but it actually looks really good. This is another example of like less pieces, but you can still make it look great. I think theirs works so well because relation of the scale to each other looks so good. I like the oval piece and the way that they have like one object center and everything is around that. It's just perfect. This one, I also loved their taste. The A at the top really makes it for me. I think it's so cool how it's wood. The frog is super cute. They have a bunch of three-dimensional elements that I really like. So those are all my examples. And thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!